Warm welcome to all you swimmers and non-swimmers who've joined us for what promises to be an intriguing chat tonight. Welcome to the third edition of CLDSA Speaker Series Cold Water Capers, where we chat to some leading figures in Cape long-distance swimming. Cape Long Distance Swimming Association supports the development and promotion of open water swimming in the Western Cape. Membership's just 300 Rand, and for that, we will help administer your long-distance swims. You'll get free access to our talks and other benefits like coaching discounts. So log on to www.cldsa.co.za to find out more. Our year is from July to June, so we're actually excited coming up for the new year. That from the 1st of July, we'll be introducing a wetsuit category. So wetsuit swimmers, many of you aspiring budding young swimmers who might be swimming in wetsuits at this stage, you'll be able to register with us and receive certificates and medals on completion of your crossings. So, and also get to be added to our database under the wetsuit category. Okay, on to the talk this evening. We are going to chat for about 30 minutes, Arafat and myself. Then we'll have roughly about 10 minutes for questions and answers. Please post your questions in the chat on Zoom, and we will moderate them. We in the last couple of sessions, we didn't get to everybody's questions, so apologies in advance for that, but we'll get to the best ones and the ones that we can get through. So anyway, without further ado, as with our previous guests, Arafat Gatabazi needs little introduction, but some of our guests don't know him. Arafat was born in the Eastern Congo and lived there during some tough times of war and unrest. This led to him at 17, leaving the Congo to search for his aunt in Cape Town. He traveled about 3,500 kilometers from Eastern Congo to Cape Town, and due to circumstances ended up at Homestead, a home for street kids. Here he stayed. He went to school and was given the opportunity to learn to swim. He took to swimming, and 11 months later, he swam his first Robben Island crossing. Since then, he has swum a number of other crossings in CLDSA swims. Each swim he does for a purpose, and we'll be exploring that a little bit later. He left Homestead a few years ago now, and he works in IT today. Not forgetting where he came from, he is giving back to kids who can't swim by teaching them. So welcome, Arafat.
Thank you, Tom, for having me.
No, there he is. All right, Arafat, like your logo. Okay, Arafat, you've done quite a lot of public speaking engagements before, and you've obviously told your story, but we hope to get into a little bit more detail tonight and perhaps put a bit more of a swimming angle on it. You don't normally have that. So let's have some fun with this. Let's start where it all began for you. You were born in Eastern DRC. Those who don't know, in the mid-90s, it was a really troublesome time in that part of the world. Near the volcanic town of Goma. I think it erupted just the other day. So what was life like for you during your formative days?
Well, I think the best way to start is from when I was born. I was born in a war camp in 1995. I was raised by a single mom. And the province where I come from, there's been a lot of conflicts from the time I was born until today. That is like, it's never ending. And the conflicts that has been going on led my dad to flee the country when I was very young. And in the same war camp where I was born, my mother lost two of my siblings. They didn't manage to survive. And the same war continued and led me to flee the country with my two cousins and my sister. But it's not always been war like you normally see it in the newspaper. I had a lot of fun growing up. Most of my memories I remember is actually the community that you grow up in. Everyone is like your dad and mom. So it was very difficult for me to get away with anything that, like if I would go in my neighbor's yard and steal mangoes, and walk away eating them, thinking that I'm going to get away with it. They will come and report it, and I will get a hiding. And the neighbors also were allowed to do so, and you wouldn't complain about it. So school was a bit challenging growing up because from primary school until when I started high school, my classes used to be in a UNICEF tent. And where I come from is really hot, so it was very difficult to concentrate in that heat.
Was that where you lived? Was the school near where you lived, or did you have to travel to school?
So we used to walk to school there and back. It was about 16 kilometers every morning. So we would walk, a group of us, and but like we had a lot of fun. Like the best thing about that was going to fetch my friends before we go to school. And the distance, like when I think about it, the distance was quite long, but we never paid attention to it because of how much fun we actually had walking. Until today, I do long walks and I get lost in my mind sometimes just walking. And like sometimes at school, because of how hot it was, we'll go and sit under the tree and study, and it was a lot of fun. So going back to when I left the country, we didn't have much on us. We were coming to South Africa to look for our aunt that fled the country before us because we wanted to have a place that was safe and also to get a better life for ourselves. The journey took us through Rwanda, Burundi, Tanzania, I think Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Sometimes I forget the countries because at times it feels like it's actually a lot of countries that we went through. And the good thing about this, actually, when I was talking about it the other day, is like we just knew we were coming to the south, and because of geography, we knew which countries to go to. So that made it easy for us when people were helping us and directing us to where we need to go. We would tell them which countries we needed to go through. And we met a lot of people on the way who were very kind. And when we got in Zimbabwe, 3 strangers offered us help, and they took us in a place that looked like a desert. And they left us there. They didn't look any different from the people who were helping us before. And they left us there for about 3 days, and they said they were coming back, and we had no water, no food, and they never came back. So we had to make a plan, and by the grace of God, we managed to get into one of the towns in Zimbabwe, which was close to the border of South Africa and Zimbabwe, and we managed to cross the border. And we made our way to Cape Town, where we managed to locate our aunt. So that's how I got in South Africa.
And you were coming with very little money, and I mean, did you have passports and that, or was it?
Hopefully, there's no one from the South African.
No, but I mean, you're a refugee, so
No, I know. Like, so the way it worked, like sometimes, because so you find when you're traveling, especially in the Central African countries, a lot of people can speak Swahili, even the officials on the borders. So we will speak to them and tell them what the situation is, and sometimes they will let us through, and other times would find our ways to cross the border. So that is the struggle we had, was to be rejected from entering a country, and we had to make plans on how to get there.
So you speak about Swahili. Obviously, you come from the DRC, French speaking. Not much English at that stage, Arafat.
Not really, but the thing is that I don't know, for people who travel, you find that when you're traveling because it took us about 4 weeks, and we were picking up a lot of English when we were coming up, because in Tanzania, if they're not speaking Swahili, they're speaking English, and Zambia, Zimbabwe. So I think, like, the English to get food, the English to get you somewhere, to just like literally for you to get something, that's the English I could speak, but it wasn't an English like where I could hold a conversation with anyone like I am today.
Okay. Okay. So moving on, you arrive in South Africa. You arrive in Cape Town. I mean, what next? I mean, you didn't have anywhere to stay. You were looking for your aunt. Tell us about that.
Well, so when we got in Cape Town, we managed to locate our aunt, and she was living in a shelter in Philippi, so she didn't have anywhere to put us. And she took us to an organization called Scalabrini, which works with refugees. And at the time, I was 17, and my cousins were 15 and 16, and my sister was the oldest. She was 19. So my sister stayed in the shelter with my aunt, and Scalabrini, because we were minors, they got us a social worker at the social development here in the garden center. And after we got a social worker, they managed to secure a home for us, which was the Homestead. It's a street children's home, and that's where my life started in South Africa.
So what sort of kids lived in Homestead? Is it literally just street kids and refugees?
I think the one thing I've realized is that the Homestead is it's not only kids that are just coming from the street. Sometimes the kids who are coming from abusive homes, and social workers bring them to the home. But the majority of kids were coming from the streets, and yeah.
So how did you fit in when you arrived there?
It was a very weird. I think it was very weird because I couldn't speak English. And even if I could speak English, a lot of the times you could find that the boys that were living there couldn't speak much English either. So it was a bit difficult for us to communicate. And the difficult part was most of the kids that lived there at the time had little to no aspiration to a better future in life. So getting there, not knowing what my life is going to look like. So I found myself in the same boat where I didn't know if I was going to go back to school. So, and there were like a few programs that they were running because for the boys, for myself, for us to kind of get any aspiration to like a better future in life, it was through like the volunteers who came to the Homestead. We did yoga. It was my first time to experience yoga. It was a bit weird in the beginning because I had never done yoga before. And then we did Mankind, which was a program where I think they tried to get young boys to discuss issues that men go through. And then swimming was also one of the programs that were offered by volunteers. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about that. Was it Marion Wagner who was at the forefront of your induction into swimming? You hadn't swum before, is that right? Or had you swum up in Congo?
Like playing in the water in the lakes back home.
Yes.
So it wasn't like I could be in a shallow side and float around, but I couldn't swim. So when I went for the first time, because they were like, would you like to go swim? And then I left with the boys. It was very interesting when I got there because it was my very first time to be in a swimming pool. And when I went in the water for the first time, I realized that it actually disconnected me from all the problems, all the noise at the children's home, and I kind of felt at peace. And when I went back to the Homestead, I went to the Cape Town library where I started watching YouTube videos on how to swim, watching Olympic swimmers, like swimming in competitions. And the next Thursday, I went back, started warming up like champions, stood on the diving block, and jumped in the water and started swimming butterfly. But I wasn't swimming, I was just following water. And Marion approached me and said, "Hey, Arafat, it looks like you're trying to swim butterfly." And then she started to show me how to swim properly. And she had met a few people like Selwyn and Tony, who
Tony Scalabrino.
Tony Scalabrino, who were looking at getting a boy from the Homestead to do a Robben Island swim. So on our next session, Selwyn and Tony came, but on that day I was not at swimming because I used to stay at school for extra classes and spending more time reading my notes because it was difficult for me because of the language. So I stayed and got more help. And when I got to the Homestead on that day, they told me, hey, some people came and they chose a boy called Terence to swim Robben Island. It was so fascinating. And I felt like I actually wanted to do it, although I didn't know where Robben Island was. I had never been in the ocean before. So I managed to get the Homestead phone and called Marion, and then I said, is it possible for me to join Terence where he's going to start swimming? So they had gotten him a swimming club where he was going to be training, and then he was also getting private classes with Mike, who is my coach now.
It's Mike,
yes, yeah, Mike, yeah. And Marion managed to get me into the same swimming club as Terence. But Terence was getting better and better because he was going for extra classes on Saturdays. And the one morning before he left, I was like, is it possible for me to come with you? And he said, I will speak to Selwyn, and if everything is fine, you can come. So he spoke to Selwyn with no hesitation. I went with him. I think it was about June or July, if I'm not mistaken. We went to the Sea Point pool. I still remember that time. I thought it was a normal pool because I had been in Longstreet and the water was fine. And when I jumped in that water, I thought someone had hit me with a brick on my head, but like I didn't want to show that I was cold. I just kept swimming because I just wanted to get the opportunity to come and swim with him. And I think I survived for like about 25 minutes and got out. And afterwards they were like, you can continue to come and train with Terence as he's motivated to do his Robben Island swim. So I continued swimming with Terence, and if a month or 2 months after that, and Terence ended up going back on the street. And I thought my swimming was going to also finish because I was only swimming because of him. And then I just kept going, showing face. And then after, I think a few weeks, someone came to me and was like, what do you think of doing the Robben Island swim? With no hesitation, I said yes. And that is how my journey started of training for Robben Island.
Sure. And I mean, in your talks, you talk about breaking through the hopelessness. So, and you talked about lack of direction amongst the Homestead boys. Was there something around a purpose here? You know, you doing this, you being able to show those other boys that, you know, there are other things that you can succeed at?
So when I was offered the opportunity to swim Robben Island, I thought this will actually be a great chance for me to show the boys that we can also achieve big things in life. Because the reason why I felt like it was so hard for us to believe that we can be able to achieve big things in life is actually because of the people who were outside, people in society, the way they treated us. Most people didn't treat the boys with respect. They didn't think we could also be able to do things in life. And often enough, I thought maybe it's because people didn't understand the situations that the boys were coming through. Because I always tell people, imagine thinking that the streets are safe for you to leave your home. Imagine what is happening where you're coming from. And kids like me coming from places where you're scared and you just wanting to find a place where you can find peace, and you're finding it in a children's home. So I think that made it so difficult for us to believe that we can be able to achieve big things in life. And I thought this was going to be a great opportunity for me to show the boys actually we can achieve big things. And Mike I continued training with Mike, and one morning he told me, I've got a proper training session that we're going to do today. You're going to enjoy it. He had a little scooter that looked like a Vespa then, and I took a taxi to Sea Point, and he took me to his Vespa to Clifton. And it was the Sunday, the one storm was happening. And he said, today we're going to swim in the ocean. And that was my first time. I will never forget that time. And it was the same reaction that I got when I first went in the Sea Point swimming pool, but it was like 20 times worse because the water was like 12 degrees. And when I went in the water, I just put my head down and swam, and I managed to complete my first mile in the ocean. But when I got out, I looked like a zombie, and that's where I met a lot of people from the swimming community because everyone just wanted to give me a towel to make sure that I was warm. And when I was reaching to a point where I was getting used to the cold and my training was going very well, the homestead where I was staying was more of to bring kids when they are stable, they can then take them to a more permanent home, which was in Kailicha. So then they said, Arafat, your time here is finished. Now you need to move to Kailicha. And then I thought, wow, my swimming opportunity now, I won't be able to swim anymore. And Selwyn and Tom, they couldn't do anything about it. And I thought to myself, I'm going to do whatever it takes for me to do this swim. And then I spoke to Selwyn, said, is it possible for you to get me transport money to swim, to get to swimming? And Selwyn, every month we met, we did some budgeting, and he got me transport money. And it was a bit of a risk because the place where I was staying, Homestead, was in a place called this section, and across the road was another place called Side B. The people from this side were not allowed to go here because of gang-related issues, and the taxi dropped me on the B side section. So every time I would finish training at 7 p.m., I would take a taxi, and the entire duration of the trip, I would be thinking, how am I going to get to the homestead? So the first thing I did when I got out of the taxi, I started running in case someone started chasing me. I had the head start already. And after doing that for a few months, I trained with Tony Scalabrino. Like if you ever want to learn how to survive the cold and be strong in the cold water, you need to speak to him. He took me to the tidal pool, and I trained until I was able to spend 4 hours in the tidal pool swimming up and down. And wow, that's when we say that I was ready to do Robben Island swim. And when I think it took about a month, if not 3 weeks, for me to get a date to do a Robben Island swim. It was a wait and wait and wait, and that was actually the hard part for me because I thought it was just going to happen. Because I was new in this, I didn't understand the waiting period of it. So it took quite a while for me to get the chance to go to do the swim. And after 11 months of training, I was very excited. And I got a phone call one evening and they said, Arafat, tomorrow is the day, the weather is looking amazing. And when we went to Robben Island, everything was fine. Jumped in, started the swim. I can't remember what happened. I just remember waking up in a warm shower at Oceana. And the story that I was told, I swam for about 6 kilometers and I had 1.5 kilometers to finish, and I got hypothermia and I couldn't swim any further. So that was I felt like I had let down the boys, and I was also very disappointed in myself. And I got some feedback to how I got the cold, because how I got cold. I swallowed so much water, so I didn't start getting cold from the outside. I think it was from the swallowing of the water that actually got me to get the hypothermia that I got. And I was out for about 40 minutes. I can't remember what was happening. Like the trip on the boat from Big Bay to Oceana, I can't remember anything. And
But you got back. You got back in. You got back in the water again. Not long after that, right?
Yes, so I went back to training and went to learn how to swim and breathing on both sides because I could only breathe on the one side. And 3 weeks later, Tony told me that the weather was amazing, and I was very nervous on that time to go and do the swim. But I had one goal: to not no one to take me out of that water, but to walk out myself. And I went and did the swim, and I was able to finish it in 3 hours and 33 minutes.
Oh wow, well done. And you know that it wasn't your swim. I mean, that's your first swim. Of course, you've done others as well. What have you done? You've done about 3 or 4 Robben Islands now, and
Yeah. So after that, I did. What was my after my first Robben Island? I did the Cape Point swim. I think it was in
okay,
2016. Karina called me, I think a week or 2 weeks before the swim. It's like, Arafat, would you be keen to do a swim for hope? We were raising funds for kids with cancer, and I was like, why not? And I think when I look at my toughest swim, I think that has been my toughest because it's very rough, and on the day it was also cold. So I think that swim took a lot out of me to complete it. Yeah, and then I've also done around Robben Island.
Round Robin. Okay, I want to get on to that a little bit later. So just at this stage, I'd like to invite everybody to ask your questions. I've got quite a few I still want to ask Arafat as we got some time here, but please put your questions in the chat. We'll moderate them, and then the best ones we'll select to ask him. But yeah, I just want to move on. So, you know, you learned to swim through Homestead and all that. It didn't stop there. You left Homestead. You've now got a job and everything, but those kids are still in Homestead and other places, and you've decided to give back. You've decided to carry on teaching.
So when I left the Homestead, because they had done a lot for me in terms of me getting South Africa with no one, and them putting me through school and finishing my matric, and also went to college. And I was like, I want to give back. And the only way I could do it was to take over the swimming classes that where I learned how to swim. And I went and spoke to the Homestead. This is what I would like to do. And they were kind enough to say yes. And I started coaching the boys. And then after a while, I thought there's actually a lot more kids, because every time I go to swim, especially in summer, I would see a lot of kids coming to enjoy the water, but they're very scared to actually get in the ocean. And me knowing how much fun it is to be in the ocean, I thought I could actually explore and get more kids from different places and teach them how to swim and close that gap of the kids who can swim and the drowning that is always happening here. So I started to approach a girl's home, because I was only teaching boys, and I was like, maybe let me mix it up. And then I got some kids from Mitchell's Plain, and then now I have kids from Jos Lovo that I also teach, and I've managed to get someone who actually, they've got a big church, they've got a lot of kids in the community. So now I don't actually have to do that groundwork to go look for the kids. Now they can do that for me, which makes it more easy. So I've now been teaching since towards the end of 2015. That's when I started teaching the kids. And I focus more on teaching the kids to love the water, and for them to get to experience what they experienced. And I don't bring the kids to teach them for them to do a Robben Island swim one day, but from time to time they come to me and say, hey, I would like to do a Robben Island swim. And one of the boys that I've been training from the beginning, his name is Tabiso. I've trained him, and he managed to do his first Robben Island crossing I think last year in Feb. So that is
great,
one of
great performance. Yeah.
yeah. So that is one
So,
of
are there
many.
any other
Okay.
Tapisos in the wings?
I think at the moment, because of COVID, it's been very difficult to kind of keep track on what's happening in terms of swimming, because we haven't been doing a lot of them. But there is one other boy who would really like to do the island swim, who I will be focusing on to train him to do the swim once we get back to normal again, because Long Street Pool is open, and that's where I do most of their technique work and all those kind of things. So I'll be focusing on him. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got loads of questions to ask you. I thought I'd just jump in there. I think at this stage, with Arafat's Learn to Swim program and all that, a lot of people today have logged onto the swim and have contributed. I think we've raised over 7,000 rand, which is a very good amount. I mean, just to say, Arafat uses that to get these kids into the Long Street baths. There's also equipment and things that these kids need. So thanks so much to everybody who's contributed today. That all the money today will go to Arafat. So thanks everybody. Okay, on to some questions. The first one said from Kiki up in Joburg. This is something we all can relate, or so many people I know can relate to. She said, I loved it when you said, once you get into the water, you forget about the difficulties in your life. So what do you think about now when you do a swim?
I think actually, because before I was more focused on doing a lot of swims, and now I'm actually at a point where I want to go and be in a place where there's seaweed and do like little dives to see what is down there, to kind of connect more with the ocean. So because not only because I just want to do that. So I've been out of swimming for about a year now because of an injury that I got from playing soccer. So through that, because I couldn't do a lot of swimming, so now I actually go and just spend more time in the ocean, especially now that I'm working as well. So it's not only the noise that was I used to get from the homestead. Now it's like the work that I need to distress from life itself. So I still use it exactly the same, and I'm still like enjoying it the way from the time I actually started. Yeah.
Okay, and then Yola Hall, you've seen her a few times at Hot Chocolate. She says, thanks so much for sharing. Can you give us a rundown? You don't need to go into a lot of detail here, just a rundown of how much training you were doing for preparing for your first crossing, just basically how many days a week, how many hours at a time, etc., and what strokes?
So the only stroke I was doing was freestyle, and Selwyn had got me free access to the Long Street swimming pool. So I was going there as much as I can, like 5 times a week. And then on weekends, I would go and swim with Tony at the tidal pool, where I started off swimming for 20 minutes in the cold. And then as I got better from 20 minutes, we went to 40, 60 minutes, to a point where we got to 4 hours. So I think the one thing I got out of it was to be consistent. That is, it actually didn't matter how much distance that I was covering. For me, it was just the more I did it is the better I was getting.
Okay, and I mean just to say as well as Arafat training these youngsters, he's become a bit of a swim coach as well. Hey, Arafat, how did that come about?
So when I started the swim school, I was using my own money to pay for the kids to get into the swimming pool. And then the one thing we used to do when we were we would come to swimming, they would get us ice cream after swimming. So I would then buy the kids also ice cream. And then I thought, I can't be spending a lot of my money to get the kids in. And I thought, if I can get private clients and teach them how to swim, I would make money to use to get the kids into the swimming pool. So that's how it started. And I've been getting like a lot of kids from like Hatsilia School, Kemps Bay High, who want to improve in air stroke correction and who are competing at school, and some people who want to do Robben Island swims, and some triathletes. So yeah, now it's become like actually a thing where I'm getting, like, my weekends are very busy because of the swimming.
Okay, great. I've old friend Annabelle from the Netherlands. She says, how about a relay with the kids?
That's actually not a bad idea, yeah. I think so. The one thing is, the difficult part actually of this is sometimes I take them to the tidal pool. The little fish in the tidal pool, they get very scared of it. So actually, the difficult part is to get them to get the fear out of the kids of those kind of things. So that takes long. So once they get used to it, definitely a relay will be cool.
Now, it's an interesting question, and I failed my first attempt as well. You failed your first attempt. I've seen others fail their first attempt as well, and I think there's various different attitudes people take from their first attempt to actually get in the water and try a second attempt. I mean, how did you say not disheartened? How did you perk yourself up to make sure that you actually completed it the second time round?
I think my main goal was to show the boys that we can achieve big things in life, and for me to fail and stop, I don't think that was going to help the issue that I was trying to highlight to the boys that we had. So I think for me was to show them that even if you fail, you can learn from the things that made you fail and go and improve to what you were doing and succeed.
Okay. Just to say as well, I mean, it's not just on the swimming. You also spend a lot of time working on other charities. I think Breadline Africa is another one that you've raised quite a bit of money for. What do they do?
So Breadline Africa, they work with a lot of ECD centers in underprivileged communities. So they take shipping containers and convert them into toilets and kitchens and classrooms. So I did a swim for them where I contributed the money through, like, the donation money that people donated. And that was, they were able to use that and build a classroom for kids in Kailicha. So like every time I wake up in the morning, actually that gives me something to look forward to, knowing that I did something and that contributed to kids being in a safe environment, because before the shipping container, they were in a shack that was not safe for them. So yeah, so I like to work with them because they do an amazing work. And also Marian, the person who got me into swimming, she's the director of Breadline. So that makes it even more close to me with the work they do as well.
Okay, so I think we want to round it up in another couple of, sorry I haven't got to everyone's questions, there's some brilliant ones, but I just want to have a question that was asked as well as something I wanted to ask you, didn't get around to it, but how can people support you further in your efforts to teach kids to swim?
I think the number one thing that a lot of people tend to do is give me swimming equipments that they've used and all those kind of things. But it gets to a point where I can't control the amount of equipment that I get. And like at some point I had more than 150 swimming caps. And I think the help that I mostly need is to get the kids to swimming from where they're coming from, and them getting into the swimming pool, and also getting a few people to join in the water and teach the kids to swim. But the people who join and volunteer to teach is like a very long process, because you're teaching kids who are coming from children's homes, who have had like abusive past and all those kind of things. So there's a lot of checks that needs to go through that, where they do like police clearance and all those kind of things to just make sure that the kids are safe. So people can do it by volunteering to come and teach, and they have to go through a lot of background checks, and then people can do it through swimming equipment, and but from time to time these days I say no to swimming equipment, and also they can donate money that I can use to get the kids newer swimming equipment, and the transport money, and also the money to get them into the swimming pool. So there's a lot of ways that they can do that. And also most of the kids, they need help with homework. So it's not only about swimming. You can go to the children's home and spend time with them and help them with schoolwork and all those kind of things. So it's not just about swimming. There's a lot of things that goes on here.
Right, Arafat, yeah, there's been some lovely comments from people and from legends themselves saying you are a real deal legend, Arafat. That's from Ryan. Yeah, and a lot of people very inspired by today's talk. So thank you so much for spending your time, your evening, speaking to us. I found it very intriguing. I think your story is unique. Annabelle thinks you should sell the film rights for your story. Who would want to play Arafat? Who would you want to play Arafat in a movie?
I've never thought about that. Ryan, do you?
Idris Elba.
Idris Elba. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thanks so much, Arafat. It's been very kind of you to share and so generously your time and your very touching story about how you got here and battling against the odds to do what you've done. And thanks to everybody else for joining us today and your kind donations to Arafat Swim School. I want to, we're enjoying the swim series, speaker series, and we intend to do another one probably 4 to 6 weeks, as I said last time. I think we've got looking into a panel discussion for those preparing for a Robben Island swim. We hope to have a dietitian, a bio, and to avoid human rights. So that's coming up. And we've got some other ones planned for the rest of the year as well. So thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, Arafat.
Thank you so much, Tom.
We'll see you in the water.
See you on Sunday.